Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of the HR Leaders Podcast, the show where we explore the future of work with industry experts and HR executives from the world's leading global brands. Today we have a special guest on the show. We're joined by Darren Chait, who's a co-founder of Hugo and co-author of 10x Culture. Welcome to the show, Darren. How are you?
Good, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. I know you've just got back from an event, right? Tell us more.
That's right. Yeah. Tell us more. We were in Lisbon for Web Summit. We were just sharing before the show. It's probably the world's largest tech conference, 75,000 people taking over Portugal's capital just That's 2 weeks ago. Really amazing experience. Definitely recommended.
Before we jump in, tell everyone a bit about yourself personally and your journey to where we are today with Hugo.
Yeah, sure. I'm looking at the Australia over your left shoulder as a great segue there. I'm originally Australian. I actually started out as a corporate lawyer for one of Australia's largest law firms. Moved to San Francisco, Silicon Valley 3 years ago to found Hugo. Hugo's a B2B software company. We make connected meeting notes software. And I'll talk a bit about that in the context of culture later on. But that came from a pain I experienced attending meetings for a living.
Literally. For people that aren't aware of Hugo, in as smallest sentence as possible, what is it that Hugo does?
Hugo's connected meeting notes software. We make the insights and knowledge generated in meetings shareable and actionable for the whole company, driving alignment, efficiency, and productivity around meetings.
Boom, elevator pitch.
You can hear I've done it once or twice before.
Just a couple.
Exactly.
So we connected obviously because of the book, right? 10x Culture. What was the inspiration behind 10x Culture, and how did you collaborate with the other co-authors to make this happen?
It's actually really organic. I'm a 32-year-old startup founder. What do I know about culture and about HR and management? And the way the book came about with that sort of introduction is we started keeping a list of the things that were working really well for us as we built a business. We started from scratch, obviously built out a team in a very competitive ecosystem where it's all about pace and output. And we were reading a lot. We were talking to a lot of people. We were watching what our partners like Atlassian and these companies that have really great reputations of building great teams were doing. And this Google Doc just started getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And then as we speak to our customers, we were looking at the things they were doing, making meeting software. We were looking at how they were running their meetings, the impact that was having on their teams and alignment and retention and engagement and all these important facets of people. And a few of our customers started asking us to share the Google Doc with them. And we realized that actually this little repository we were sitting on was hugely valuable to others. So we collated them all into the book of stories, ideas, and tips for people in our shoes, building fast-growing businesses to practice, essentially.
The headline of the book is the 4-hour meeting week and 25 other secrets from innovative, fast-moving teams. So can you share some of your favorite lessons that you shared in the book? We'll be here a while if we're to go through all 25.
All 25, totally. I'll tell you my favorite 2 or 3. I have to talk more about the 4-hour meeting week. Tim Ferriss has made the 4-hour work week very famous. But at Hugo, we actually don't meet for more than 4 hours a week. That's 10% of typical working weeks internally. And the reason is we think meetings as a concept are broken with respect to what's changed in the way we work. The workplace and the way we work is nothing like it was even 3, 4, 5 years ago. Remote is normal, distributed teams, the way we make decisions, the explosion of tools. The average company has 130 different bits of software powering it now. We're in a very different position. So why are we meeting the same way? So we at Hugo say no more than 10% of your week in internal meetings. And what that does is it elevates meetings as a forum for decision-making, discussion, idea generation. It strips out the purpose of meetings being for sharing information, keeping everyone on the same page, giving updates. We have great collaborative tools for that. There's much more efficient ways to do that in 2019. So that has made a big difference. People also come prepared. Because there's much less meetings, they obviously have more time themselves to get work done, to be introspective. So that for us, that rule, which we set up in our calendars internally, has really, really been transformative for how we collaborate and work together. And people love their jobs because they've got time to have high quality conversations and get work done, not sit in the room when they didn't need to be there.
So what's the format of each meeting look like?
Sure. We always have an agenda. The agenda isn't as much of introducing unnecessary formality and process. It's communicating what I want to get out of the meeting and allowing other attendees to be a part of that. So when we walk into the meeting, everyone's had the opportunity to contribute to what we're going to talk about that day. So the meeting's quicker, everyone's bought in, everyone's engaged, and everyone's going to get value out of it. So that's the agenda. We obviously take notes like everyone, and the notes
in your app.
Oh, of course, what a question. Yeah, we take notes in Hugo, but whatever you use, whether it's Hugo or not, the notes have to then be of value to people outside the room. So we have to share them out so everyone else in the company knows what's happening. They're a part of it. They're engaged. They're included. And then we turn them into actions, obviously, with a loop back to the next meeting. That's the 4-hour meeting week. Totally, highly recommended. Honestly, I always think to myself, like my little yardstick is in my next company and, the rest of my career, what are the practices and ideas that are going to be non-negotiable for me moving forward? And that's absolutely one of them.
What's one of the other areas to stand out to you?
Decision making, for sure. So the way companies make decisions for me is one of the most influential aspects of culture. Obviously, decisions are how we navigate and move forward, whether they're really small or really significant. But we came across a concept from Shane Parrish, who's behind the Knowledge Project and Farnham Street blog, a really experienced practitioner who spoke about the decision journal. And we adapted that for our team. So what the decision journal is, it's the concept of noting down the decisions you make at a point in time. If it's for yourself, maybe it's in a little notebook. And for each decision, you write down the decision you made, the rationale, so why you made that decision, the expected outcome, what you think is going to happen, and a date to reassess. And the reason you do that is because it allows you contemporaneously, without that revisionist history we're all guilty of, to look back, put yourself in the mindset of where you were when you made that decision and see what transpired to make better decisions. We socialize that. We have that in one place for the whole team. And what that's been able to do for us is achieve shared consciousness. So if I make a marketing decision or a growth decision or an investment decision with the team, my engineers start to get a sense of how Darren thinks, how he makes decisions, what the rationale, what he's thinking about. And as a team, we start to get into each other's heads, think like each other, and we're able to make better decisions and relate to each other far better. So our shared decision log has been one of the strongest sources of alignment, better decision-making, and velocity. You move faster because I know what Chris is going to say here.
Can anyone see that? So can anyone in your team see your decision log of why you've made that decision?
Yep. They can.
No matter what level they are in the company, whether they're a new. That's really cool. What does that look practically? Do you do you do it within your app, or do you? How does that work?
We've set up a type form where we ask those questions. It integrates with Slack and it pings everyone from time to time saying any decisions you've made this week. So we don't have this annoying process where, the CEO is coming and saying, hey, everyone, time to log decisions. You respond to it via Slack through you logs in type form. And then in our all hands every week, it surfaces the decisions that have been made. And of course, the decisions that were made a while ago that are due for review. And whoever made the decision talks to it. And we all understand as a company what they're thinking, why they're thinking that way. And we get to reflect on the good and bad decisions we've all made many months ago.
Yeah. Is that also part of creating a culture where failure is unpunished? Because I'm sure there are decisions that are logged and made, but people don't agree with them. But that's okay. Is that fair to say?
Exactly, spot on. I think the best decisions, to be honest, are where executives like myself and my co-founder in the company may get it completely wrong. Because we're being vulnerable. We're showing that there was rationale. We're not just shooting from the hip all those months ago when I made that decision, but we knew what we knew. We got it completely wrong. And that's great. That's cool because now we know. And I'm going to make a better decision next time. So you're spot on there. That's again, one of the strongest ways we can be vulnerable and show failure is absolutely fine.
Let's carry on with this vein as well. Could you talk about how the language you use as a leader, how that shapes your reality?
So language is really interesting. This is something I didn't think about at all. I learned this from a couple of our partners who have been very experienced in building teams. And as soon as we started experimenting with language, we saw pretty amazing results. To introduce what I mean, with language, there's obviously, as we know, when we're communicating, a lot of what we're saying isn't in the actual words. It's in the in-between and the tone and the voice and that. And what we realized was that we can contribute to better ideas and better outcomes just by tweaking some of the words we're using. So a very famous principle is instead of saying no in an idea generating or team discussion situation, saying yes and. rather than shutting a concept down or someone thinking down. Accept it, and if you don't agree, add another layer on top of it, in addition to it, and not instead of it. And that's well known, the yes and way of doing things. But there's so many other principles around it. If you just think about the words you're choosing, the impact that has on your team, you'll see quite a different culture and feeling generated around particularly these team discussions. So we're very aware now of the language we're using. Very often, I will pull up a member of the team, not based on what they said in the meeting, but the way they said it. And, little things like we give an example in the book. We don't talk as a support team about dealing with a customer. That's saying customers are a problem. They often are. But if we're just talking about assisting the customer, enabling the customer, when that customer support rep goes to the customer, they're going and actually thinking about being helpful, notwithstanding the customer is a problem. And really small tweaks like that are really important. A lot of retail stores, Disney World, for example, has always spoken about their visitors or shoppers as guests. Yeah, that changes it. You're in my home, you're in my store. I want to be hospitable and welcoming. They're just people who are paying money for their goods and services, really. But that changes the way that the associates and the staff in the store are dealing with them. So little things like that have really made a big difference to the decisiveness, to how empathetic the team are, and then to the outcomes, because everyone's contributing better to the conversation.
You also talk about reframing managers as coaches and cultural guardians. I love that part within the book.
So a lot of this actually comes, I think, from you can call it Gen Y or whatever it is, the sort of state of employees and teams and where things are today. We know, which is a really great trend, that professionals in 2019 and beyond are looking for far more than just a salary and a good job and career certainty. They look personal development and skill generation and being able to move forward is never been more important to our generation of professionals. If you think about the role of a manager, historically, to be effective, it's been about output. To make my team as effective as they can, I need them to produce as much as they can for as cheaply or as efficiently as they can. That doesn't make sense in 2019 because that's not what they're motivated by. An extra $5,000 or an extra bonus isn't what's motivating our generation of professionals. It's personal development. It's making me challenged and learn and having learned more. It's making me in a better position for whatever comes next in my career. So we view our managers and our responsibility as executives as a coach. How do I make my team members better about themselves and better for what they want to do? Because that's going to lead them to perform better for us as a business. You know, there's a lot of obvious things, giving your team members free rein to do what they need to do, and the difference between directing and supporting, which is a concept I think a lot about. My role as a manager isn't to direct them as much as it is to support them. If I'm supporting someone, I'm able from underneath or behind to direct them into, where I want them to go. But directing them is standing there and pointing and sending them on their way, not being behind them to help them move on their way. And, that's a really nuanced difference, I guess. But thinking about the role of managers in that way, the way you run one-on-ones, the way you think about personal development, the way you look at look at things with a long-term lens when you're trying to make your reports better, is all related to coaching as opposed to managing.
You also talk about giving people objectives, not plans, right?
That's probably one of my biggest lessons. Coming from corporate, I always saw the role of a manager or as an executive to be the know-all, most senior person in the room who had the best ideas and the final decision-making. As I mentioned before, the diversity of perspective and the different ideas that people bring is what you're hiring them for. I mean, you're spending all this money on getting great people, and then you're putting them in the room and telling them what they need to do. So one of the biggest shifts we had to make as young, inexperienced leaders at the time was to realize that we're hiring smart people. We know what we want as output, but why would we tell them how to do it? There's no point hiring smart people otherwise. So exactly, giving the objective, not the means, not telling them how to do it, is the best way to extract value from these great people that you spend all this time and money hiring.
We've already gone through meetings already. I think the other area you talk about is talent, and then the people that make up a 10x team. Can you talk about that?
Recruiting and finding the right talent and culture fit some of the hardest concepts. And I know you talk about this a lot on the show. I've listened to a bunch about this and learned a lot. So no one's got all the answers and we haven't got it right. I think the best lessons for us in building that 10x team have been a few things. One is hiring generalists, especially in the early days. So one of the difficulties in hiring people that are so specialized is that they don't look or think outside the realm of what they do. So firstly, of course, adaptable businesses are key to success, where, we might build a team focused on this particular problem, delivering great workshops. But we realize now that social and live video is a really great way to interact with our audience. But these people are only good at delivering live workshops, say. Now we're stuck because we can't take the business where we want to go. So finding generalists in that way, but also generalists in terms of diversity of thought and perspective. I think one of the challenges of hiring exclusively in Silicon Valley is you end up with the same sort of people from the same socioeconomic background, the same gender, unfortunately, in many cases. And then when we're having a great discussion where we're trying to relate to our customers or the strategy of the business, I don't want 5 me's. I want people from all walks of life who look at things completely differently. So we optimize for that generalist, for that diversity of perspective, where people look at things differently, not like us. The other thing we do is we optimize for people who can communicate in different forms. We don't want the people that are great in meetings and loud and proud and great for that conversation, but can't listen, can't do well chatting, can't do well on the phone or face-to-face, and etc. So we mix the format of our recruiting process. The first step when you apply for a job at Hugo is to send us a video talking about something you're passionate about. So in product marketing, that might be your favorite bit of software. In engineering, it might be your favorite language. So we get to know you that way. We then have formal interviews, we have coffees, we have lunch together, mixing up the format to try and get to know people through those different forms. That's very effective.
How do you go about measuring culture fit?
I think the way to test culture fit is a bit of what I mentioned, mixing up the format of conversation. So looking socially, which might be that coffee or lunch, looking professionally under pressure, looking at them individually. So that's one. Obviously, trying to maximize contact with the team. So different people can look at it from different perspectives. And also for the applicant too, they want to make sure that they fit. I'm one personality, exactly. So that's one, again, meeting as many people as you can and doing that. And then just having great conversation away from the job. I see recruiting as 2 things. One is skills and experience. That's easy, or the easier half. And you go through that process. And then culture fit is getting to know someone, finding out what they're passionate about, what they love, what they hate, what's worked, what hasn't worked, their favorite ideas from previous managers, the things that they didn't like that previous managers did, describing their ideal work environment, and getting to know them as people. What makes them tick? What gets them out of bed in the morning? All these things, there's no checklist. They can't come and tell you that if they say this, they're a good fit, if they're not. But you feel, it's like dating. How do you know when you go on a date? I don't have a checklist saying they're driven, they're, I like,
some people do.
They like the outdoors. I know, but they're not the people you want to be recruiting. I just think she's the one or he's the one. And that's what I'm doing. Yeah.
Did you say in the book about doing a small project with them?
Totally, exactly. So trying to work with them. So you're like, this person is a good fit. I think we're going to get on well. Test it. Let's go do something. Let's write something together if they're in a marketing role. Let's build a bit of software if they're in an engineering role. Let's look at these financial statements and help me prepare the annual report for the, or a bit of it. We'll pay you for your time. We'll get to know each other. And it's all telling. And obviously that's not always possible.
I know it's not always possible. I think it's a really good way of doing it though, personally.
100%.
I love that. I love bringing people into the office who come in for the day. For example, if it's in sales, they'll spend the day with a sales team working on a particular, campaign, and then I can see how they're interacting with the team. And that's, for me, that's always been one of the best ways that I can see that fit, because it's actually doing the job at hand.
Exactly. And you should be more excited at the end of the day about them, not less.
Exactly.
Because normally when you hire someone, your greatest point of excitement in about that person is when you hire them. We want people that I'm going to get to know and be more excited about over time. So as you spend time with them, it should go that way.
Jax in the LinkedIn said, how does your software handle and follow up with action items?
We do that through integrations. We know that the average company uses 130 different bits of software, and 90% of them are for one department. sales, HR, marketing, etc. So Hugo integrates with all your tools. So as an action item comes up, you go and send that out to the tool where it's relevant. So that might be Trello, Asana, your CRM, Jira, wherever work's getting done. The action items are created in that downstream tool, and the status of them is kept in the meeting note. So it's easy to follow up. It's easy to make sure it actually gets done. I'm not transposing action items after the meeting into the relevant tools that everyone's using. It's directly from your notes.
So if I'm operating in multiple places, at least it comes back to one source.
Exactly. We're gluing it all together with the meeting as the central source.
So you're like the in-between man, woman.
In between people, exactly.
Yeah, but to make sure that the items get actioned, that's the main thing, right? And it's all in one place. Okay, I hope that answers your question. We're seeing more and more with remote work, right? How do you bring those people working remotely into your culture? Yeah,
so remote work is no longer a trend. More than 75% of US companies have at least part of their team remote. There's crazy numbers out there, and it's only getting greater. That's a good thing. How do we do that? You need to manufacture serendipity. So what am I losing when someone's remote? I'm losing what they used to call the water cooler talk. Now it might be the beer keg talk or whatever happens in modern companies, right? The fact that I can go there
together.
Yeah, exactly. And talk, about the weekend or about something I was just thinking. Now it has to be a meeting scheduled or an email or a Slack message. So how do we manufacture that serendipity? Well, we use video very heavily at Hugo, because in video, we're having a great conversation now. It's high bandwidth. You can see me getting excited. You can see me bored. You can see my body language. You can see how fast I talk. Whereas when that's in an email, it's very structured and regimented and objective driven. So what we do is all of our quick conversations are with video. There's great tools out there like Zoom, Blue Jeans, Google Meet. I can in one click open up a video call and be like, "Hey, Chris."
Skype. No one mentions Skype anymore.
Oh yeah, not Skype. I know.
Do you know what? I love you, Microsoft, and I love you, Skype, but no one mentions Skype anymore. And I use Zoom as well. And I know the foreword to the book is from the CEO of Zoom, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's just it's modern.
Zoom's
it's just a modern take on it. Zoom's fantastic. But I can go and say, I was just thinking of a really cool idea. I can just ping Chris and be like, "Hey, got a sec?" And he'll be like, "Yeah." And I'll launch a Zoom call and be like, "Hey, dude, got this idea. What do you think?" Now that's the stuff that happens in offices, but people are so hesitant and reluctant to do that. But why? I'm very happy to tap you on the shoulder, and that's more disruptive than pinging you and saying, "Got 2 minutes," and launching a video call. So trying to create serendipity that way is really important. We do it asynchronously as well. So I'll often record videos. There's great tools out there for that too. I mean, you can just use the QuickTime and the software on a computer, or Loom and those sorts of products, where at 3 a.m. when I wake up and I'm trying to explain something or that's worrying me or keeping me up, I'll record a quick Loom video and say to the team, like, "Hey team, I was just thinking, what do you guys think about that? I love this. I don't like that. Send it." And then everyone gets to...
Rather than doing, it's so much more powerful that way than an email though, right?
Exactly, because we're humans and they can hear it.
Yeah, the passion's lost, the energy, enthusiasm. It's not there. I think I'm going to take a note to start doing that.
And it works the other way.
Yeah.
So I was going to say, what about the negative bit? When I'm trying to give someone feedback, right? Where I'm like,
"Oh, it's the worst. Never give feedback by email." Oh,
exactly.
My God.
But you have to if you're remote.
I've made that mistake before, and it's so bad. I know you think you're doing good, but no one reads a text or an email about feedback and is motivated to go away and make change. It just always comes across bad.
100%.
I've made that.
But what choice do you have? If you and I work together, you're in the UK, I'm on the west coast of the US. I literally can't get 30 minutes with you some days to chat. So you resort to the email.
Yeah, but to send a video.
Great job, Chris. That was awesome. But this, I really want us to improve. And here's why. And you get my tone as if I'm standing next to you. You can rewatch it 5 times. And we're on the same page, even though we're on different time zones. So that's a good tip.
Time as well, by the way.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Exactly.
Yeah, and on Zoom, you can literally just hit record, right? Go on Zoom. It's free, up to 40 minutes. There you go.
Exactly.
Hit record.
There's a plug.
There's a plug. It's free. Record it and just send it. Yeah, definitely.
100%.
Yeah.
So that's worked well for us with remote teams. And then, of course, finally, budgets permit. It is good to get together from time to time. We do offsites every now and again. And what that does, it's like syncing your watches again. So when you go away, you get to know each other better. So you can hear my tone because Darren excited. That's Darren disappointed. That's just Darren. He always talks this fast. He always is this animated, not that animated, whatever it may be. We get to know each other socially at a different level, which means when we're collaborating and working together professionally, you've got that shared understanding of who I am and who everyone is. So that's also recommended to do from time to time.
You wrote how being remote changes time and space.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
One of the lessons I've learned when I work remote versus when I'm in the office is it can be very immersive, work being remote. So if you think about someone who's in a house or in their apartment or in a cafe, when they're sitting there all day, you lose track of time. The days blend into the nights, the personal time blends into the work time, and vice versa. It's very easy for to lose perspective of what you're doing at work, to have a clean mind, to be able to stop, think about things clearly, not to be eating dinner while you're trying to still finish this work, while you're trying to do the washing, so you're not doing anything well. Our remote team members share all the time the best things they do is to try and obvious things like trying to separate and having a space to work and things like that. But also looking at the environment and situation in which they're working. You've got advantages. If you're least productive late morning, that can be your gym time. Go to the gym. Establish the remote environment and the remote setup that makes you best productive. Don't let remote be an excuse for bad work practice and bad balance and work-life harmony. Yeah. And that for us is just the risk you're at, I think, working remote. I'm obviously not going to sleep in the office, not usually anyway. So why is that a very likely scenario when I work remote? And you need to think about that.
I find I sometimes get the most work done because I've got no distractions, right? No one's coming up to you to ask you a question. There's no distractions. You're just kind of in the zone. And it's very rare that I will then get distracted by something around the house or doing stuff like that. And also we have to trust our employees to do that. If you can't trust them to work remote, and then
you shouldn't have hired them.
You shouldn't have hired them in the first place.
You've got bigger problems. Exactly.
Yeah. Before we wrap up, I think everyone's agreeing with what you're saying, and there's a lot of steps that you've and actionable advice that you've mentioned along the way. But if there's sort of one thing that you would recommend for everyone in terms of getting started, what would those steps be?
In general, culture is a bit of a dangerous word. I think it's the case that it's got a bit of it's a buzzword in HR and management, as we know, massive buzzword. And we were really hesitant to call the book anything with culture in it. And I think the reason is, I'll tell you perfectly, at a Web Summit last week, someone comes up to me and they'd read the book and they said, "This is so great. And it's such good time to read the book because we're about to redo our culture." And I burst out laughing. It was probably a bit rude, actually.
Redo your culture.
I'm like, it's not your living room. Like, I'm about to repaint, and all of a sudden, everyone's going to look at things completely differently, and we're going to interact in a different way. You can't redo your culture. Your culture is a derivative of the people that in your business, of the practices, the personalities, the way you do things. You don't set a culture. Culture is there. So, as far as getting started, and answer your question, what you need to do to get started is change small behaviors. Implement some of the practices we've been talking about. Go with your decision log. Change the way you meet. Try to change the language of your next few meetings. Encourage one person, as you mentioned, on your sales team to start working remotely. That is what's going to change your culture. Those small things layered on top of each other is dictating the values and the way your company operates and its DNA. That's culture. Not rolling out a PowerPoint presentation and motivational posters all over the wall, as part of a week-long project next week.
Am I correct in saying that people can head over to your website and get a digital copy of the book?
Yeah, so that's right. If you go to hugo.team, which is our website /10x.
Well, look, thanks so much for taking the time to join us. Before we part ways, what's the best way for everyone to learn more about you guys and also connect with you if they have any questions?
Sure. So on our website, www.hugo.team, TEAM. You need to get an HRDleaders.team, by the way. .com is not for what we do. Hugo.team. You can follow me on Twitter, Darren Chait. You can see the spellings underneath there. And reach out on LinkedIn. I love having these conversations and very happy to keep the conversation going.
Thanks a lot again, Darren. Bye.
Thanks again. Bye.
See ya.